Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly O'Horo, and this is Adaptable, Behavior Explained. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to Adaptable today. My name is Kelly O'Horo, and I am your host. And I created this podcast in general to help people understand more about how we behave and why we behave. And using my years as a trauma therapist and many hours of patients on the couch, I've learned a lot. And so hopefully I can bring some insights to you and help you understand your relationships and how you interact and why people behave the way they do a little bit better. And so today what we're going to talk about is the concept of intimacy. And I hear people talking about being lonely, being disconnected, not knowing how to gain the attention of their friends, family, children, parents so often. And I think in this day and age with our technology and our phones and our compulsions to be constantly distracted by something and our terrible intolerance of being bored and wanting things happening quickly with our answers and our information, we just are really disconnected from one another more so than any other time in our history. And so today I want to talk about intimacy because with connection comes the reduction of anxiety, comes the reduction of depression, comes feelings of belonging and allowing us to, be in authentic relationships. And so this topic today about intimacy is really at the core of every meaningful relationship. It's not just physical closeness. Intimacy is, into me you see is my little catchphrase that I use with my clients, but because it's not just the physical closeness, it's the emotional closeness. It's the kind that makes us feel seen, safe, and deeply connected to one another. And so that phrase, I think, captures it so well is intimacy, into me you see. And when we don't allow others to see us, we cannot be fully connected. And that requires risk. It's vulnerable to allow our walls to come down and to allow people to be with us in our emotional experience. And so we're going to talk about what intimacy really is and how we build it and why it can feel so scary and vulnerable. And we're going to talk about emotional safety, curiosity, compromise, and how to create space for our true connection so that we can be in relationship that's authentic and real. And this is not just romantic relationships. This is friendships, relationships with ourselves. How much of our true self do we show ourselves? And this is in friendships. This is in family relationships and sibling relationships. This is even with our children and with our parents. And so let's break it down. Intimacy. What is it really? We're going to redefine this. At its core, intimacy is about being known. It's the experience of being seen, heard, and not just seen and heard, but accepted for who we truly are. And it's not just about closeness. It's about the emotional safety or the perspective of emotional safety that we have in relationship. When we feel emotionally safe, we can be vulnerable. And when we're vulnerable, we can connect. But for many of us, especially those of us with trauma histories, vulnerability can feel so dangerous. And we might have learned that being open leads to rejection or abandonment or even harm. And so we protect ourselves. We armor up, we wall up, we shut people out, and we shut down. Sometimes we get lost in just performing or hiding. But the truth is, intimacy doesn't require perfection. It just requires presence. It's being in your body, present with somebody else, and being able to tolerate what comes up. It requires a willingness to be seen, even when we're feeling messy or unsure, or when we have shame, or when we've made mistakes. That's what it takes to be in good, close relationships and to have true intimacy. So this phrase, into me you see, I love because it really just grounds the word intimacy. And it's more than just a clever play on words. It's kind of a roadmap. It reminds us that intimacy is about allowing someone to witness our inner world. And that kind of openness requires trust. And trust isn't built overnight. It's built in small moments over time when someone listens without fixing, without judging, when they hold space without needing to do something with it. And also it's about consistency. If you call them and you say, can I talk? It's someone who's willing to be there for you. So if you've ever struggled with intimacy, you're certainly not alone. Many of us have parts of us that fear being seen fully, parts that say, if they really knew me, they'd leave or they wouldn't like what they found. But healing happens when we begin to challenge that belief and when we let someone in and discover that we're still loved even when we're not just right. So something you might want to ask yourself is, what helps me to feel safe enough to be vulnerable? And how can I offer that same safety to somebody else? Because we're not just wanting intimacy for ourselves. We want to be able to provide that intimacy and connection to other people that we're in relationship with, so that we're not in a lopsided relationship, that we give and we receive, we share and we hear. And so building connection takes effort, it takes consistency, but it takes curiosity. And so one of the most important and underrated tools for building intimacy is curiosity. When we are genuinely curious about how someone sees the world, what they're going through, how they're adapting to it, we can create space for that connection. And a lot of times curiosity is not as hard as we might make it. It can sound like, what was that like for you? Or help me understand what you were feeling. What does it mean to you when you say that? It's not about agreeing with someone. It's not about solving a problem for someone. It's not about comparing it against what you would do. It's just about understanding that everybody is different and they're going to respond to things in their life in a different way. And when we feel understood, we feel safe, and we can then feel close. So in relationships, curiosity is the antidote to assumption. It invites us to slow down, to listen, to ask, and to see our partner or our friends or our family or our colleagues not as a reflection of our own fears, but as a whole person with their very own story. So the next time that you feel disconnected, I want you to try this. You're going to pause and take a breath and ask a curious question. And you might be surprised what opens up for you. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is contracting, compromise, and emotional safety. So a lot of times we know what we need, but we don't express it, or we're not willing to do what we need to do to create safety in a relationship. And so contracting isn't a legal agreement. It's about an emotional agreement. It's unspoken or even spoken understanding that we create to help each other feel safe in relationships. So maybe some examples would be like, hey, when we argue, let's agree not to raise our voices, or let's agree not to cuss each other out or name call. Or if you need space, let's just let me know instead of just disappearing and not responding. Let's check in every Sunday and just see how we're doing, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes if you don't have a lot of space. But let's make a rule to just kind of be in touch so we understand how we are in the world. These contracts can create a little bit of structure and some safety around expectations, and they can say, I care about how you feel. I want to protect our connection. I want to protect our relationship. And compromise is part of this, not the kind where you abandon yourself, but the kind where you say, your needs matter to me and I'm willing to meet you halfway. And I think that with buzz around boundaries and around codependency and around taking care of ourselves first, a lot of people are really taking that to mean something that it doesn't. And that's lacking in consideration for our behavior and our experiences and how our behavior and experiences impact those we care about. And so this compromise is like saying, I really need space, but you get anxious when I take space. And so I want to let you know that I just need to take some room. I need some introverting time. And I just want you to know that we're okay and it's not about you. And these are things that we think about in compromise, where we're meeting halfway. Healthy intimacy isn't about getting everything you want. It's about creating a relationship where both people feel seen and respected and safe, and we talk about what it is that we need to be in relationship and to be in connection, so that we don't lose that connection, we don't lose that safety, and we don't lose trust in one another and what we need from one another. So it takes work. Intimacy requires, intention and thought. And it's a practice. It takes a daily practice. It's not a destination. It's a practice. It's built in small everyday moments. It can be things like a thoughtful question, a gentle repair after conflict, a shared laugh, an eye movement, or an eye moment of like connection in a group. A lot of people share little memes with one another nowadays, where they'll see something on social media and they'll share it directly with someone else. Those are moments of saying, I'm thinking of you. I see you and I'm thinking of you. A quiet moment of presence is also really helpful oftentimes, even if there's not much going on, but just being in the same place with one another. So if you want more intimacy in your life, you have to start by showing up with curiosity and compassion. You have to start by asking, what helps me feel safe? And then how can I offer that to somebody else? And you want to remember that you don't have to be perfect to be loved. You just have to be willing to be real. And you have to be willing to work in connection and compromise, because everybody's needs for safety and trust are different. And so we have to be willing to be open to learning about what someone else might need. I did this show specifically because, like I said, I hear so many people talking about how disconnected they feel. And it's a simple concept, but it's not an easy behavior to get practice with all of the distractions that we have. And we've become human doings instead of human beings, and we're not slowing down enough to really be in present connection often enough. And so we want to make sure that you know that there are ways to do this. Intimacy is about being seen, allowing others to be seen too. It's about creating space for truth and tenderness and trust, compassion and connection. So I hope that you found this helpful and inspired you to make a few changes in some of your relationships if there has been some disconnection, or you felt like some of the tightness in your experience has fallen by the wayside. Life gets lifing and we end up overwhelmed, and it happens to all of us. So hopefully you can grab a few nuggets from this show and reconnect with people in your life that matter to you. So I hope that you found it helpful. I thank you so much for tuning in. And again, if you find this helpful or something someone could benefit from, please share it directly with them or comment and give us some feedback as to what we might want to improve. And subscribe and give us ideas about shows that you would find interesting to hear about. So thank you again so much for tuning in today. I appreciate your time. And until we meet again, don't forget to leave with love. It'll never steer you wrong.